Hello, yeah, I'm back. It's been a while. There is a reason for that. I'll tell you now. Actually, if you got a minute. Basically, a couple of weeks ago, when I was making something in here, and then yeah, and I've never really had any of that before. And basically, to cut a long story short, yeah, big things take longer to make than small things. Are you all right? I felt like I lost you there for a second. Welcome to episode 33. Big episode. Basically, might be a bit of a long episode. Making something big also requires doing a lot of things. And if I do things, I need to film them to put them in the episode. That means a lot more footage. I have no respect for your time. I'm going to be honest. Grab a cup of tea, a coffee, a beer, relax, and yeah, let's get on with it. Look at this guy. So as always with my builds, I like to design the thing first. That's a lie, that's a complete lie. I never usually design anything, but this thing is big, so I feel like I need to just kind of at least get the silhouette. Hence why I'm drawing these really rubbish looking robots, because I just want to get the pose and the shape. Do I want it to be a short fat thing or a big tall lanky gangly thing? I don't know yet. I don't know, that's what this is for. So as you can see, I'm starting to settle on a shape. It's going to be kind of gangly, kind of hunched over with a long aerodynamic neck. That's the last time I'm going to make an aerodynamic joke in this video. So my thinking was that, if you're like 50 meters tall, you don't want to bend over to pick something up. I don't want to bend over and pick something up now. So I gave it really long arms. So I figured it should have a long neck as well. Not only it looks cool, but you can kind of look around without having to move its whole body, because it might trample a village or something. Anyway, that was my thinking. Here's a better image I did later, and let's build it, shall we? Actually, let's make up a story first. Here we go. Story time, children. So on a planet that is essentially a junk planet for the rest of the galaxy, thousands and thousands of years of junk piled on top of each other, there is mountains and mountains of all sorts of machinery that no one knows exists anymore. And one day, a lonely robot comes across a weird device. Now this device has a familiar slot. This is a little slot that robots can use to copy themselves and imprint themselves onto another machine. See, the robots here don't really have any identities. They're essentially just copies of one AI imprinted on another. So this robot thinks, well, let's just see what happens. Let's stick this card in here. Usually when a robot copies himself onto another robot, they become the best of friends because they have so much in common. The Scrap Titan looked around and sadly can never find the original to this day. But anyway, that's the tale of the Scrap Titan. I hope you enjoyed that. All right, Bill, that's enough drawing and storytelling. How about you build something? All right, there's a drill. Look, here's a drill. So this build is going to be big, and I figured I need a big, strong, heavy base, and I found this chopping board in the pound shop, where everything is £1, or £2 in this case. But it is worth it. That's a pretty good chopping block. So I want the structure of this thing to be really strong, because it's going to be really big. See, hold on one second. There we go. I'm going to use this epoxy resin. You just mix part A and hit part B together, and it creates part C. I don't know. Anyway, it creates a resin that's really strong, stronger than super glue and all the other glues. So yeah, let's make sure this thing doesn't collapse under its own weight. So I've been collecting kitchen roll tubes for a long time, for some reason, because they are the best tubes, obviously, and I figured I could use them for this build. No, I'm no structural engineer, you all know that. Well, maybe you don't. We do now. I'm no structural engineer, what a surprise. But I figured, you know, if I want to make this thing strong, I'm just going to wrap it up with metal wire over and over and over again. Cover the whole thing with epoxy resin. It's got to be strong, right? Any structural engineers watching, please comment below. Seemed pretty strong to me. I'm happy with that. Let's continue. So I misjudged how much epoxy resin I needed, so I had to use this stuff. That's kind of the theme of the episode, is misjudging how much glue I'm going to need. We keep tabs on how much I use later on, just for fun, because, you know, I'm all about fun. Should have gone to engineer school, you know, or university or college. Or at least try and get my English GCSE. Should, yeah. See, I have no real tips for making an armature for something this big, but I just basically kept reinforcing the bits with other bits until it felt kind of like, you know, there, look, there's a little hip bone connected to the stick bone, the kitchen roll bone. Look, I just kept reinforcing it until it felt pretty solid to me. And it just kept rubbing more of that epoxy resin. Look at that. Now I understand that image can be taken out of context, but that is the neck and the legs are down there. Thank you very much. So for the head, I'm going to use this little plastic Easter egg that you're supposed to put a little treat in. I have loads of these from the pound shop, obviously. Get them at Easter, they're really handy. And there we have the basic skeleton of my scrap tartan. This is the worst part, getting this part done. The rest should be all uphill from here, hopefully. And look, just for scale, here's a 28mm guy. Or is it all downhill from here? I don't want to get started on that again. I mean, it's downhill, right? Because, you know, if you're going downhill, you're going faster and it's more fun. I don't know. Whatever. If you really like my channel and you want to keep me going, there's no better way to do it than join Patreon. There's no contract. You can leave whenever you like. Just click on that link, have a look, see what you think. And if you don't want to do any of that, just click that like button, share it with a friend. I don't know. If you're young, sign your dad up to YouTube and get him to subscribe. And if you're an old person, you know, or you're like my age, then get a kid to watch it. Kids like it as well. That's why I beep out all the swearing. Because, you know, for the kids. Anyway, I should get on. The build's here, you just can't see it because it's, yeah. It's quite hard to hide a giant build in these pieces to camera. So just imagine it's here and I'm working on it. Whatever, let's cut back. Thanks, Bill from the past. Very smooth, very smooth. Fairy lights. I have these fairy lights. I want to put some lights inside the build, but I don't like battery operated lights. They tend to run out and I never change the batteries. So yeah, I got these lights. They're USB powered, but they're red and they're not very bright. I'll stick them in anyway, see what happens. That's the other theme of the episode, sticking it in and see what happens. That jerk. So I want to sort through the junk I'm going to use for this build. A lot of spherical and hemispherical shapes, like that. And a lot of this conduit wire and tubes. This conduit wire you can get from office places. They use it to protect wires from, I don't know, hamsters. And I found a pack of these hair curlers. They're not like these ones, but they have this fuzzy material. If you just cut that off, look at that, a perfectly usable hair curler. For scratch building, not for hair curling, obviously. So let's go through the materials I'm going to use. A conduit cord, I already explained what that is. Some garden wire, you know, the wire you use in the garden. Some hair bands, bands made of hair. Or bands you stick in your hair. I don't know, I don't use them. Washing line cords, I don't know, don't use them. Some elastic string. Exactly what it says on the packet, and some Christmas/holiday wire. So like sculpting, I want to start with something big, so I'm going to start with a big fat chunky conduit wire and get my shape, and then I'm going to refine with some smaller conduit and then smaller from there and on until we refine a nice shape like sculpting. So this is the first of many glue sticks I used. Just for fun, I'm going to keep track. So to keep this model looking pretty organic, even though it's a robot, I'm going to use a lot of spherical shapes like this Christmas bauble. Now what you'll notice about this video, there are a lot of montages, a lot of jump cuts, just like this. And it's basically days and days of work, shrunk down to 20 seconds worth of footage. Enjoy. No, I don't know why I'm telling you that, maybe I just want you to feel my pain. So the next step was this finer gauge conduit wire. I could use this to refine the shape even more. So to make the cable look like it weaved in and out, I cut it at certain angles that would just kind of sit flush. So you may have noticed me pulling out this little blowtorch from time to time. It's basically to burn away all the little cobwebs left by that horrible glue gun. I hate glue guns. So I wasn't sure what to do for the scrap Titan's hand. I figured, you know, something that big would have more of a claw, like a crane claw. But anyway, claws are easy. So the next stage was hairbands. Now these hairbands have a really cool texture on them, and they're quite tricky to stick down. So like the hot glue, I thought I'd show you how many super glue bottles I used for fun, because, you know, this is all about fun. Don't ever say Bill's not about fun. I'm always about fun, okay? So now onto garden wire. Unlike the hairbands, you could pre-bend these into whatever shape you want, and they stick really well. So yeah, I love garden wire. So some clothesline wire, just to add a bit of variety in there. And Now my favourite, Christmas / holiday wire. This stuff you can pre-bend and you can kind of twist it up, tangle it, have it hanging from places. This stuff really adds scale to your model. And here's the first overly dramatic shot of the robot, because it's a giant robot and you need overly dramatic shots. That's just the rule. So I found all these hair combs in the pound shop and I just wanted to kind of experiment. So for this build I'm going to need a lot of metal plates, and with metal plates you need rivets, so I figured I'd make my own rivet tool, I guess. So for relatively little effort I was quite impressed with the outcome. I need to adjust it maybe, fewer rivets, but yeah. This one ended up looking like a bourbon biscuit, but still. And of course you can have as many rivets or as few rivets as you like. So the reason why I'm using EVA foam, it takes texture like that and it can bend round curved shapes, which is handy. At this point I'm thinking of more textures, and hair colours have some of the best textures, plus you can cut them with scissors. Now if you're wondering why I stuck that there, there's no real reason. I just assume they're kind of air vents, maybe. I mean, none of it makes sense. Anyway, time for greebles. A while ago I was going to make a video about making a bits box like this, but basically all you need to do is just collect tiny bits of plastic and stick them in a box, and there's your bits box. It'd be a pretty silly video, but when you get to this stage of your build it's nice to have lots of options laid out in front of you for greebly bits. Now as Greg Greebley once said, googly eyes make the best greeblies. That's what I read in his book. What was the name of the book again? Oh, that's it. It was Life is a Greebly by Greg Greebley. And if you enjoyed that book, you should read about Daniel Drybrush. So I got Michael Bay to direct this little cutaway here. He overdid it a little bit, if you ask me, but anyway, thanks Mike. It took me days to do all these greeblies. Again, 20 seconds worth. Here you go. One day someone's head will explode. So light some candles because it's time to prime. Oh yeah. It's times like this I wish I never quit smoking. Hello again. Basically I just wanted to say there was a piece I took out. There was the whole me cutting the chopping board into a nice round shape, making a base with rubble and ruins, and I used some of the rusty ragu on it, but I didn't film it, you know, and I thought if I filmed that bit, this video would be a couple of days delayed more, you know, and if you see the base at the end, don't be like, oh, you didn't show us that. I'm like, well, I told you, you know, I think you've been here like 20 odd minutes already. Actually, you know, it's a bit of therapy for me. I didn't have to film every single step of my build. I could just make some of it off camera and the world didn't end. So it's not very good for you lot, I guess, but anyway, I thought I just should explain. So it's at this point in the build where I remembered there are lights underneath here somewhere, so I made a couple of marks to drill holes. So it's time to paint. Now you may be thinking, Bill, it already looks painted. Well, that's some silver spray paint from above and black from beneath, and it does look pretty good. But I like to have my metal varied and use different tones of metal, like this silver here, and then I'm probably going to use some gold in other places. You know, gold, like this. So I'm going to be honest with you, it's not going to look like this at the end. There's going to be rust. I can't make a giant metal robot without there being rust. I'm sorry. You've seen my videos. So I went about the rust a different way. I watered down some of this burnt sienna paint almost to a wash. And it works pretty well. I let it all run into the cracks. And it's easy to dab off with you know, a bit of tissue or your finger. And then I just try and vary it up as much as I can. So all through this build, I updated my patrons pretty much daily, and I asked them moss or no moss. They said yes to moss, and I'm glad they did. So I used 4 different types of flock. This is all sawdust flock, and it was actually made for me by Ryan D. Rock, who has a channel called Dungeon Masterclass. You should go check that out. Thanks Ryan for this. It's the first time I've actually got to use it, but I appreciate it. In case you're wondering what this chemical concoction is, it is literally PVA glue, water and flock. So my intention was to have the moss kind of facing up towards the sun, because I assume that's how moss works. Probably should have googled it, but this is alien moss, so say what you want about PVA glue, it is one of the strongest glues, you know, once you let it dry. So I'm going to cover the whole thing in an oil wash. I have had a few comments recently, like what is an oil wash? If you haven't watched the Black Magic Craft video, it's basically oil paints mixed with paint thinner. Depending where you are in the world, that could be white spirits or mineral spirit. Just look for a generic oil paint thinner from your art shop. You know, why paint when you can just oil wash? So ages ago I made these molds using some Oyamaru, I think that's right, and I want to use them again because I want to make some lenses using this UV resin. Now my regulars may recognise this bottle as the alcohol ink I made using permanent markers, and I've actually found a use for it. It actually works really well as a tint for resin, so there. They actually look like really tasty jelly tot sweets. You probably shouldn't eat these. Probably. And relax. I'm pretty happy. This is my happy face. Yeah, I'm genuinely happy. This is it was really hard work, but you know I really like it. And you know the thumbnail of this video says where would I put it? Well, the funny thing is my wife actually quite likes this. She never likes anything I make. She actually quite likes this. I might be able to stick it on a shelf in my living room. Can you believe it? I'll have to just chuck it back there somewhere. I mean, one thing that I always tend to mess up. I always mess it up on things like it's the lights. The lights, they do work in this, USB powered, but you have to kind of be there in person to see them. The lights just aren't powerful enough to shine through. I mean, I made these nice little orange, like amber lenses. And, you know, if I can see the light shining through, but, I mean, you can't. It doesn't really show on camera. So stupid Bill from the past didn't check the microphone and it cut out. I blame the ghost in the room. So I'm going to have to kind of try and translate what he's saying here. You sure? He's probably saying something about stick around for the glamour shots. They're here in a minute. And a big thank you to all the patrons for sticking by me. Oh, he's pointing at the eyes now. He probably talking about how he wants to eat the eyes. They look like little jelly sweets, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, thank you, patrons. And stick around for glamour shots right after this. Yeah, he definitely wants to eat those eyes. And here we are, some extra long glamour shots. One of the main problems with making something so big is fitting it in front of your screen when you're trying to film it. But other than that, enjoy the glamour shots. So what do you think of the build? Please let me know in the comments down below. If you like bigger builds like this, would you like me to make more like this? Maybe not just like this, because, you know, I get 2 videos out a year. What else should I ask? Oh yeah, did you enjoy the storytelling part of the video? Do you like the world building? Would you like to hear more about that? Let me know. I probably should have asked this earlier on in the video because you probably all clicked off by now. Also, there's merchandise down below. I should have asked that earlier as well. Anyway, Christmas is